Hey guys, in this video we're going to take a look back at all 34 maps that I've built or built in collaboration with other people. This year has been absolutely insane guys, and I really have to give an absolute massive thanks for all your support throughout the year. So with that being said, I hope you enjoy the video. Starting off my Fortnite creative journey, we have my first ever map in Fortnite, which was based off of Minas Tirith from Lord of the Rings. This was when creative mode was in a super primitive state way back in December of last year. There were only about 25 or so galleries to build with, and you couldn't resize props or copy and paste. Still, I instantly realized the potential that this game had. Next up we have my Venator class Star Destroyer. Now a lot of you might think I'm a huge Star Wars fan, but I actually amn't. I just love the designs of the ships in the movies. I actually revisited this map a couple of times. It now has a death run inside of it and a Republic gunship in the pre-game lobby. This map was also built at an extremely early stage in creative, so don't expect too much detail when visiting it. I do however plan on rebuilding it sometime in 2020, so watch out for that video. Now we're moving on to the third map I built this year, which is my Avengers Helicarrier. This is again another one of my really early builds. I converted it into a free-for-all map which still plays pretty well, but I also plan to revisit it in 2020 and completely rebuild it from scratch. My fourth build of this year was my USS Enterprise spaceship. Now I've never really watched Star Trek, but I decided to build this anyway as it's instantly recognizable. Now you might have noticed the pattern with these early builds. They were all non-prop based and are built using simple wall roofs and ramps. This is because I hadn't really experimented with other building techniques yet using props and grid snap. Coming at number 5 is my ATTE Walker creation. I was challenged by an early viewer to build this after they saw my Venator class Star Destroyer. I thought this might be a good chance to start experimenting with some prop build structures in the game. This was the final product I came up with, and I was really happy how it turned out. I started to take a lot of requests from my subscribers back then, so the next two creations are my early versions of the Super Star Destroyer and Imperial Star Destroyer. Later on I also created a Lambda shuttle next to the Super Star Destroyer to make the map a little more interesting. For my next build I decided to make another iconic castle from Lord of the Rings, which was Helm's Deep. This map came with a pretty fun attack and defend game mode and took about 2 or 3 days to build. It was also the first map where I experimented with creating my own custom terrain for the mountains at the back of the castle. The Millennium Falcon was the first build video that really took off on my channel and gained about 30k views in the first 2 weeks of it being released. This was a really ambitious project for me as I tried to give the Falcon a movie accurate interior. And remember, there was no such thing as resizing or copy and pasting when I built this, which made it a huge challenge. However, in the end, I was super happy with the final result. After I'd finished building the Falcon, I got a load of requests to build other vehicles from Star Wars. So next up was the iconic AT-AT Walker. This was built using a lot of the techniques I'd learned while building the Falcon, where I used a combination of cubes and props to create the desired shapes and textures of the Walker. My 11th build of this year was another one of my more popular maps. Building the first ever Death Star was probably one of the most challenging projects I had built back then. I had to create a giant perfectly rounded sphere out of nothing but large cube blocks, where every single cube was painstakingly placed to make the spherical shape. This map also included an adventure game mode which many larger YouTubers such as Jelly played. If you do plan on playing it yourself, I'm going to warn you now that there are a ton of trolls in this map, and you might get super frustrated trying to finish it. For my first ever featured map, I created Fortnite Mobile, which was a parkour course inside a giant phone. Personally, I really hate this map, but it's still a pretty fun one to play through, although there are some trolly levels and you might end up rage quitting. As you might know already, I'm Irish. So for St. Patrick's Day I created 2 St. Patrick's Day themed maps. One was called Patrick's Party and was a block submission, while the other map was a maze made for a featured rift. Unfortunately none of these achieved their goals, but I will be revisiting the maze map to see if I can get it featured for 2020 St. Patrick's Day. Following the success of my first Death Star build, I decided to make the Death Star 2, but officially giving it the title Macca's Moon, as I was trying to get it featured. But unfortunately that didn't happen as it was too similar to Star Wars copyrighted material. However, it's still a really fun map to play through and definitely not as trolly as the previous Death Star map. The next map I built after that was called Vanquish Voyagers and was my LTM submission. This was essentially an attack and defend game mode, where you had to simultaneously defend your ship and attack the other ship. The two ships are actually based off of gliders in the game and are mostly built out of the primitive shape gallery. I'm actually a huge fan of modern architecture, so for my next project I wanted to try and make a futuristic looking city. I named the city Tilted 2119, which was what I thought Tilted Towers would look like in 100 years. I'm pretty sure I was actually the first person to use the ring gallery and primitive gallery to create these modern skyscrapers. Macca's Modern Mansion was the first block winner at the beginning of Season 9. This block only took about 9 hours to build and used a lot of modern building techniques I learned while building Tilted 2119. It included a custom built yacht, which made it stand out from the previous featured blocks that had come before it. Tron Joust is probably a map that many of you haven't even heard of. It's essentially based off of medieval jousting where two players fight each other while passing in parallel separate lanes. It's a pretty buggy game mode, but worth mentioning. Before Season 9 was released, I built a replica of Tilted Towers in another modern architectural style I had come up with. Every building in Tilted Towers was reimagined in this build, and they all had their own interior. This map also went pretty viral, with people thinking it was going to replace Tilted Towers in Season 9. In the end, this was not the new Tilted Towers, but was actually built for a collecting coins game mode that was part of the Battle Pass challenges in Season 8. Right around the middle of April, Blue Drive and Tamalia had the idea of creating Team Evolve and asked me to join it. Our first project would be a free-for-all and hide-and-seek map called Bite Size Battle. This map was essentially a house scaled up in size. The members of Evolve that contributed to this project were me, Stormhawk, Blue Drive and Tamalia. After that collaboration, I ended up doing another one with KK Slider and Blue Drive. This map was called Neo Plaza and featured the first ever hardpoint game mode, thanks to KK's amazing mechanics. Right around the start of May, Epic Games reached out to Team Evolve to ask us to build them a map for the Block Party event happening in LA. This map would be called Sky Station Showdown and would be played by world famous streamers and celebrities. All of Team Evolve were flown out to LA for this event. It was definitely one of the craziest trips of my life. While I was working on Sky Station Showdown, I also collaborated with one of my friends called Fehawk, where we built a map based off of a game we played in school called Bulldog. This map was called Bulldog Arena and had a giant stadium where you would play the game inside it. Fleeing Sky City was the next map I built, which was an adventure game mode where you had to escape Sky City. This was an extremely time consuming project and took about 2.5 weeks to finish. This map also got featured and had a few well known streamers and YouTubers play through it. While I was out in LA for the Block Party, I was also out there for another event called Game Jam, where 15 of the most well known and talented Fortnite creative players would build maps for the Fortnite World Cup in New York. This resulted in me partnering up with Shride, Iscariote and Hushin to build a New York themed BR map. Once I got back from New York, I was really inspired to create my own genre of game modes. So I created Macca's Games, which was essentially my take on the Hunger Games. First I created a map called The Fountain, which featured an island with mountains and a jungle surrounding it. Next was the Oasis, which was basically a remake of Sky City, but with a new way of building futuristic skyscrapers in it. Then there was Tilted 2119, which was a repurposed and transformed Tilted 2119 map I had built. Then came Launchside, which was me pushing the ring gallery to its limits and creating a rocket launch platform. Finally, the last Macca's Games map was Pandora, which was based off James Cameron's Avatar and took about 2.5 weeks to finish. Macca's Games never really took off, but I really enjoyed making all of these maps as they gave me loads of practice in different building techniques in creative mode. In October, Nickelodeon reached out to Team Evolve asking if we could build a map for them, based off a new TV show they were releasing called Are You Afraid of the Dark? This map turned out to be the Carnival of Doom, but was based off of Macca's Games game mode. I however couldn't really contribute a whole lot to the map, as I was at Epic Games HQ building the first ever Fortnite Creative Hub. This is probably my greatest accomplishment to date, and I am super proud of myself. Now that I had got a ton of practice in creative mode, I felt like it was time to revisit some of my old builds, which started off with Minas Tirith. This project was pretty much built using no grid snap for any of the foundations, and really put me to the test. But in the end, I was delighted with the transformation. With the upcoming release of Star Wars Rise of Skywalker in December, I wanted to revisit my Star Destroyer build. This map turned out to be the best map I had built in 2019 and features my most advanced adventure game mode. All in all, I'd say this spaceship took about 120 hours to finish and completely trumps my previous Star Destroyer map. My final map of 2019 was again to celebrate the new Star Wars movie. This map was a 2/3 scale CR90 Corvette and included a full interior. Currently this map is just a free-for-all and hide and seek map, but I plan to add an adventure mode version eventually. As you can see, this year has been absolutely insane, but again, it would not have been possible without your support, which I'm truly grateful for. So going into 2020, I'm going to set a goal of hitting 100,000 subscribers. I know this is ambitious, but hopefully with your continuing support and hard work, I'll get there. Alright, that ends this video, and I hope to see you in the next one.